Parsha, we learn about the rebellion of Korach against Moshe. Korach, who actually was a first cousin to Moshe, incited a rebellion against the leadership of Moshe and got many people to follow him and break away from the camp of the Bnei Israel, the Israelites in the desert. And they formed their own faction, and they demanded that Moshe hand over the reins of the leadership to their group. And things went from bad to worse, and ultimately ended up catastrophically for Korach and his group, where there was this major earthquake, the ground shook and swallowed them up, and that's the way, unfortunately, that story turned out. But I would like to emphasize one part of the story. As things were unraveling, it says that Moshe sent a message of reconciliation to Dasan and Aviram, who were two of Korach's allies in this fight, and they were renowned troublemakers, these gentlemen, Dasan and Aviram, and they were very adept at stirring the pot and pushing people's buttons, and they had a long reputation all the way from Egypt as being such professional troublemakers. And Moshe sends this message of reconciliation to them and says, let's talk. And being that they were Dasan and Aviram, these troublemakers, they refused to talk, and they were actually very disparaging to Moshe. But Rashi points out something very interesting. Why did Moshe send a message of reconciliation to Dasan and Aviram at the time? Rashi says, we see from over here, he says, She'ein machzikin b'machlokas. You don't hold on to an argument. And what that tells us is that, Moshe didn't look at who was right and who was wrong. He said there was this argument, he wanted to go ahead and solve it. And the question, begs, is that Moshe was the leader of the Jewish people. He was correct in his stance over here. He wasn't acting on his own, but rather God had nominated and appointed him to be the leader. And why should he be the one bending over backwards to Dasan and Aviram, the people that are inciting the trouble? In fact, Moshe should say, they should come and reconcile with me. They should be the ones asking forgiveness from me. Why did Moshe be the one to initiate the olive branch to them? That's teaching us, I think, a great lesson, and that is that there's so many conflicts in life, and most of the conflicts have a guilty party, and some have the party which is not guilty. And many times we focus on, okay, I'm right and the other person's wrong. So if I'm right and the other person's wrong, so why should I be the one to reconcile with him? I'll wait for him to reconcile with me. And so goes the story with many relationships that have fallen apart. Relationship in families, relationship with friends, relationships with neighbors. Many relationships have unraveled because people have thought, I am correct. The person I'm arguing with is wrong. Let him ask me for forgiveness. Let him say I'm sorry. Moshe taught us something else. Moshe taught us it doesn't matter who's right and who's wrong. When there is a machlokes, when there is an argument, when there is a fight going on, we try to put out that fire no matter what, even if you're right. Because when there's a machlokes, we all lose. When there's a fight, everyone loses. So therefore Moshe went to the nth degree, reaching out to the chief antagonists, Dasan and Aviram, who clearly were in the wrong, and said, I want to send an olive branch to you because we all lose when there is a fight going on. Folks, I can't emphasize enough how much the fighting between families, friends, and others have caused so much grief and emotional disturbance among us. And many times we just insist on that we are right, and why should I reconcile with others? Let us remember the lesson of Moshe, and let us remember how devastating arguments are, and how it's always important to reach out your hand in reconciliation to others. Have a wonderful Shabbos.